let's give this a shot. Explain what's bits and bots. Alright, hello there and welcome to everybody. This is my inaugural video of my new channel, Bits and Bots. I thought I would start this one off with a pretty easy topic, trying to explain variables and memory and kind of things associated with that. So with that out of the way, let's get into it. Alright, so I'm going to be using C for most of these videos because I feel like it kind of forces you to think about some of the stuff that goes around in the background, and I think at least it helps me understand stuff better. And here is a picture of the board that I'll be using for some more visual examples of kind of what I'm typing. And I guess I'm going to start this off by making a variable called ping pong, and then I'm going to kind of show you guys what's going on in memory. So I put this ping pong ball on space 2b, which kind of represents our system making space for our ping pong variable so that we can put something in it later. And now is that time. So let's assign 5 to our ping pong variable, and now let's go see what that looks like in memory. So I'm going to take this ping pong ball and I'm going to flip it over, showing that I put 5 in the space I reserved with the ping pong variable. And now I'm going to take that ping pong variable and use this kind of feature that C has for you to be able to see the address of the space that was reserved for your last variable by typing in ampersand and then the name of the variable. And here is kind of what it looks like in our little memory visual. Now I'm probably going to do the thing that I end up doing most whenever I'm doing any kind of programming, which is printing out what I have to make sure it actually matches up what I think I should have and what it's supposed to be. So what I'm doing here is printing out the value of ping pong, value of ping pong, in hopes that it's going to be 5, and then I'm going to print out the ping pong pointer that I have. And a pointer is really nothing more than just the C lingo for the memory address, or the pointer to the memory address that our variable is stored at. And also I know that I'm not really explaining a whole lot of the syntax for what I'm doing. That's something that I think really only comes with practice and lots of mistakes, really, which you're going to see right here. I made a big fat mistake, and those error messages are probably the thing you're going to see most when you're programming, and I get a lot out of them, honestly. I mean, like, they suck and they make everything take way longer than you think it should in your head, but making these kind of errors and looking at it and kind of deciphering what it means is really important. But anyway, I forgot to put the star there, which is just a syntactical issue. That means that I am using a pointer. And now you can see that the value is 5, and that's just the memory address. I don't know, it's just some value in your computer's memory, and that's where it's actually stored physically. Alright, and then if you want to make another variable, your computer just makes more space for it, in this case at 4D, and then you could put something in there like 6 in that case. Alright, so now we're going to move on to something that I think is pretty close related to variables, especially when you explain them in the way that I just did, coincidentally, which is arrays. And there's a couple different ways you could make an array in C. There's the pointer way, which is the way you see right now. And then there's a way that's a little bit more disguised, but still is basically the same thing, which is by typing the name and then putting some brackets at the end and the size, or how many variable spaces do you want to reserve for that array, which is conveniently displayed here, where I have 3 consecutive spaces reserved for that array starting at 3b. And then once you have all the spots for your array kind of reserved, then you can decide to put stuff in it. So in the first index, I'm going to put 5, and then in the second index of the array, I'm going to put 6. And just because I chose not to put anything in the third index doesn't mean it's not still reserved. So as you can see here, it goes 5 and then 6, and the whole array starts at 3b. Now we're going to do something that you guys are probably going to see me do a lot, and you probably should have called by now, which is printing out what we think this variable contains, just to make sure that we set everything up right, and so we know for sure that we have the correct understanding of what we're actually doing. And while I take forever to type this print string out right here, I think it's a good time to kind of go over types, which is something I skipped over a little bit earlier. A type basically just tells the computer how much space you want to reserve for your variable. So I've been using chars, or characters, or whatever you want to call them, which is kind of telling your computer that you want one ping pong ball's space reserved. And if I want something bigger than a char, like if I want a bigger number, then I can use an int, which is either 2 or 4 ping pong ball spaces, kind of depending on what kind of computer you have, but most people have 4, I think. And then if I want to use something that has decimal points, then I can use a float, which would be like 4 ping pong balls in our example. And then if I need to use something that's a little bit bigger, but I also need a decimal place, then I would use a double, which is like 8 ping pong balls in our example we got going on here. And now I guess I'm probably just going to fast forward through the rest of this printing, because you guys don't need a typing lesson, especially from me. And now that we're finally done with that, we can recompile and then run it again, and voila, we see that everything as is expected. The first ping pong array value is the 5, and then the next one is a 6, and the last one, the computer's really nice to us and they put a 0 there, but it really could have been anything, so it's nice to initialize them if you're going to use them. But anyway, another important note is if you want to go look at the addresses of where the PTRs are, or the pointers are, you will see that they are consecutively numbered, which is kind of what I was trying to get back at earlier. So all in all, just kind of think of an array as just a big chunk of variables back to back. Alright, now that we're done with that explanation, I think this is a good time to issue you guys some challenges, because I always think that it's really helpful to practice the stuff that I just learned so that I have more, or any shot really, to remember what I just learned for more than like 5 minutes. So after watching this video, I think you guys should be able to make a variable that contains your name and another variable that contains your age, and then print them out in some sort of fancy string. And then for the next challenge, I think you guys should be able to make an array that and call it my favorite movies, or my favorite food, or my favorite video games, and then fill it with like your top 5 favorites of whatever that category is, and then print it all out in a fancy print string again, and hopefully both of those things print out how you expect them to, and if so, I think that means you have an okay understanding of what's going on. I'll leave more details down below, and then I think that's it for now, guys. See you next time.